Come closer, my friend. Sit by this little fire for a while. The night is quiet. The air is soft, and the flames are whispering stories older than memory. Tonight, I want to tell you a tale. Not a loud tale, not a tale of heroes or wars or gods. No, this is a small story, a gentle story. A story that begins with a boy, a sheep, and a dream. But eventually, it becomes the story of every human being, searching for something they cannot name. Let the fire warm your hands. Listen to the wood crackle, and let your breath fall into the rhythm of the night. Because The Alchemist is not just a book. It is a whisper, a breeze, a quiet reminder that life itself is a gentle guide if you know how to listen. Long before we had cities, phones, noise, human beings sat beside flames like this, looking up at the stars, asking questions they couldn't put into words. Why am I here? What is calling me? What do I long for when nobody is watching? Paulo Coelho wrote this story for the part of us that still asks those questions. The part that is tired, but still dreaming. The part that has wounds, but still hopes. The part that feels small, but somehow knows that destiny is whispering our name. The Alchemist is a story about that whisper. The little voice inside you that no school ever teaches you to trust. The voice that says, go, try, begin again. Don't settle. Your treasure is waiting. But most people silence that voice before it ever learns to speak. In the quiet hills of southern Spain, a shepherd boy named Santiago sleeps under the stars. He listens to the wind. He talks to his sheep. He reads books, slowly, letting each sentence settle the way embers settle in a dying fire. Santiago is not special, not chosen, not powerful. He is just like you and me, someone who feels the world faintly calling him, but doesn't know where the path begins. Every night, he dreams of treasure buried near the pyramids of Egypt, and every morning, he wakes up wondering, what if my dream is real? That question, that tiny spark, is what begins every great journey. Not certainty, not confidence, not a grand plan, just a soft little feeling that maybe, just maybe, your life is meant for more. But the moment Santiago decides to follow his dream, life does something strange. It tests him. It takes things away. It scares him. It confuses him. It forces him to choose. Because destiny, my friend, never arrives fully formed. Destiny begins as a fragile thing, a spark in a dark room, and you must protect it until it grows strong enough to protect you back. The Alchemist is a map for how to protect that spark, how to follow omens, how to listen to the signs, how to trust the wind, the heart, the strange coincidences that seem like magic but are actually messages. Messages meant only for you. This is not a story about treasure. It is a story about transformation. The treasure is only the excuse. The journey is the real reward. Because every person who walks toward their dream must cross deserts, meet teachers, face fear, fall in love, and lose pieces of themselves so new pieces can grow. Santiago's journey is your journey, my journey, the journey of anyone brave enough to follow the quiet voice inside that says, "There is something more for you." Tonight, in this calm, magical silence, you're going to walk beside him. Through markets and mountains, through dunes and deserts, through danger and wonder, through love and loss. And maybe, just maybe, you will find a little piece of your own destiny shining somewhere inside his story. So breathe in. Let the warmth touch your skin, and let the night settle around you. The journey of the alchemist is about to begin. A journey of omens, dreams, meaning, love, faith, and transformation. A journey that teaches us that the treasure we seek is often buried within us. Now, take a deep breath, my friend. You're listening to Wise Alchemy, a home for wandering souls. My friend, let's return to that quiet night. The fire glowing softly, the world slowing down around us. Tonight, let me tell you about a boy who slept under the sky and believed the stars were speaking to him. His name was Santiago. He was a shepherd, not a scholar, not a warrior, not a prince. Just a boy with dusty boots, sun-kissed skin, and a heart too big for the small life he was given. Every day, he walked with his sheep across rolling fields, listening to the wind run through olive trees, feeling the earth soften under his footsteps. But Santiago had something that many people lose as they grow older. He had curiosity. A curiosity so gentle, so alive, that even the sheep seemed to sense it. Every night, Santiago slept in abandoned churches with holes in the ceiling so he could fall asleep watching the stars blink overhead. And every night, a dream visited him. A dream of treasure hidden at the foot of the pyramids of Egypt. The first time it came, he thought nothing of it. The second time, he felt a little whisper inside his chest. But the third time, the third time, he woke up with the strange feeling that his life had quietly begun to change. Dreams that return are not dreams, my friend. They're messages. So Santiago did something most people are too afraid to do. He listened. One afternoon, Santiago walked into a small village with narrow alleys and old stone walls. A gypsy woman read his poem by lamplight and told him something strange. Your dream is not a dream. It is a prophecy. You must travel to Egypt. Your treasure is waiting. Santiago laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but deep inside, a small ember began to glow. Was the universe calling him? He didn't know, but he felt something shift, a quiet tremble in the invisible threads of his destiny. The first omen. People often imagine shepherds as simple, quiet souls. But Santiago was different. He read books. He wanted to learn. He asked questions nobody around him asked. Why do some people follow their dreams while others bury them? Why do we fear the unknown more than we fear regret? Why does the heart whisper so softly that most people never hear it? Santiago didn't choose the shepherd's life because it was easy. He chose it because it gave him one precious thing: freedom. Freedom to move, freedom to learn, freedom to listen to his heart as it wandered through the world. But freedom, my friend, always comes with a price. And life was about to ask Santiago a very important question. How much are you willing to lose to chase what you truly desire? One evening, Santiago returned to the ruined church where a great sycamore tree grew through the broken roof. He let his sheep settle as the golden light of twilight spilled across the stone floor. He opened a book, but his mind wandered back to the dream, back to the treasure, back to the feeling that something out there was waiting for him. He didn't know if it was madness or magic, but he did know one thing. If he ignored the dream, it would follow him forever. And if he followed the dream, it would change his life forever. Some choices you can't run from. Destiny waits patiently, but it does not wait forever. That night, Santiago slept under the stars again. But this time, the stars felt closer, brighter, as if they were leaning down to listen to him, as if the sky was preparing to open a path. Every great journey has a moment of stillness before the first step, a quiet pause, a breath, a soft trembling in the heart. Santiago didn't know it yet, but his life was standing right at the edge of that moment. A dream repeating itself, a gypsy's warning, a strange feeling in the air, a whisper from the wind telling him, "Go." But would he go? Would he leave everything behind? Would he follow a dream that made no sense at all? Only the next chapter holds that answer. My friend, the fire has dimmed a little bit, but the journey has only just begun. Some meetings in life feel accidental, but later you realize they were arranged by something you cannot see. This is what happened to Santiago on a warm afternoon in a small Spanish town, filled with white walls, orange trees, and the distant sound of church bells. Santiago had just sold his wool and was sitting in the plaza reading a book, a habit he loved even more than tending his sheep. But that day, something unusual happened. A shadow fell across his page, and an old man, dressed in a worn cloak, eyes sparkling like someone who knows far too much, stood before him. The old man looked at Santiago with a calm, curious smile. "You're reading about things you already know," he said gently. Santiago blinked. "Do I know you?" he asked. "No," the old man said softly. "But I know you." Santiago felt a shiver, not of fear, but of recognition. The kind you feel when a stranger speaks something true about your soul. The old man sat beside him with the ease of someone who belonged everywhere. "My name is Melchizedek. I am the king of Salem." It sounded impossible, absurd, fairy tale-like. But there was something in the man's presence, something ancient, that made Santiago listen. The old man continued, "You are searching for your treasure." Santiago's heart stopped. "How do you know that?" The old man chuckled softly. "When you truly desire something, the entire universe whispers it to me." Santiago lowered his gaze. The dream, the pyramids, the treasure. He had told no one. Yet this old man was speaking as if he had read the thoughts hidden deepest inside him. Melchizedek explained, "There is a language spoken without words. It is the language of omens, the language of fate, the language understood by hearts that are awake." Santiago felt the fire inside him grow a little brighter. Could this man be real? Was this destiny? Was this a sign? The old man leaned closer, voice soft as the evening breeze. "Every person on earth," he said, "has a personal legend." Santiago repeated the words silently. Personal legend. They tasted sacred. It is the reason you are born, the thing only you can fulfill. But, he sighed, most people never follow it. Fear blinds them before they even begin. Santiago looked at his hands. Was he one of those people? Would he allow fear to steal his destiny? Melchizedek touched his shoulder gently. "You have a beautiful destiny, boy, but you must choose it." "Why are you telling me this?" he whispered. The old man smiled and pointed at the sheep. "You love them," he said. "They give you warmth, food, company. But they also keep you from the treasure calling your name." Santiago felt torn. To follow his dream meant leaving everything, his flock, his comfort, his routine. The old man seemed to hear his fear. "Listen closely," he said, "because destiny speaks only once." He held out his hand. Inside his palm were two small stones, one white, one black. "Urim and Thummim," he said, "for clarity and wisdom. They will guide you when your heart falls silent." Santiago touched the stones carefully. They felt warm, alive, as if carrying the breath of ancient stories. "They are not magic," he added. "They simply help you listen to the omens you already know." Before leaving, Melchizedek spoke the sentence that would echo in Santiago's life for years. "When you want something with all your heart, the universe conspires to help you achieve it. Not because life is easy, not because dreams fall like rain, but because destiny is not given, it is chosen. And once you choose, forces you cannot see begin to move. Winds shift, strangers appear, paths open, coincidences multiply. It is not magic, but it feels like magic, because the universe loves a heart brave enough to listen. As the old man walked away, Santiago felt as if a door inside his chest had quietly opened. He looked at the stones, at the sunset, at his sheep, and the horizon stretching endlessly towards Africa. A whisper rose from deep within. Go. Santiago didn't know where the journey would lead. He didn't know what dangers or wonders awaited. But he did know one thing. His life was no longer the same. The first mentor had appeared. The first sign had been given. The first thread of fate had been pulled. The journey had begun. My friend, the moment before a dream begins is always filled with uncertainty. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff at dawn. The sky glowing pink, the world holding its breath, and your heart whispering, "Jump." That's where Santiago stood now, between the life he knew and the destiny calling his name. For years, Santiago's flock had been his family, his comfort, his safety. He knew the sound of each sheep, the rhythm of their steps, and the warmth of their bodies when they huddled beside him in the cold. Letting them go felt like shedding a piece of himself. But destiny, my friend, asks for sacrifice before it gives blessings. So Santiago gathered his courage, met with the merchant who often bought wool from him, and, with a trembling heart, sold his entire flock. The merchant looked surprised. Why would a shepherd give up everything? Santiago smiled softly, because sometimes you must lose the life you have to find the life you're meant for. The merchant didn't understand, but destiny did. Santiago used the money to buy a ticket to Africa. When he boarded the ship, his heart pounded like a drum echoing across the sea. The waves rocked gently, the wind carried the salt of new beginnings, and behind him, Spain grew smaller until it vanished completely. He stood on the deck, watching the horizon melt into gold, and whispered to himself, "This is real. The world is larger than I ever imagined." When the ship reached Tangier, the first thing he noticed was the color. Bright fabrics, vibrant markets, silver lanterns, the aroma of spices, the hum of languages he had never heard before. It felt like stepping into another dimension. He was excited and terrified. But that's how all real journeys begin. In Tangier, Santiago realized something painful. Nobody understood him. The language was different. The customs were unfamiliar. Even the smiles of strangers felt unreadable. He held on to his money tightly with one hand and his hope with the other. But destiny will always test you before it guides you. And Santiago's first test arrived quickly. A young man approached him, speaking Spanish fluently, friendly, warm, helpful. He offered to guide Santiago to someone who could take him to the pyramids. Santiago, innocent and excited, followed him through twisting markets, past shops glowing with brass and incense, until, in a single moment, the boy disappeared. And so did all of Santiago's money. Gone. All of it. Just like that. Santiago stood frozen in the middle of a crowded foreign street, his heart cracking open. He had lost everything within his first hour in a new world. His dream felt like a cruel joke now. His courage felt foolish. His hope felt naive. He sat down on a low wall as the call to prayer echoed through Tangier, and tears filled his eyes. For the first time, Santiago felt truly alone. Sometimes, my friend, the universe tests you by taking away everything except your choice. Your choice to continue, to rise, to trust, to walk. Santiago wanted to go home, to abandon the treasure, to collapse into regret. But something inside him, small but steady, whispered, "You're already here. You can't turn back now." Dreams don't just demand courage, they demand endurance. So Santiago wiped his tears, looked at the city again, this strange, colorful, overwhelming place, and said softly, "If life wants to break me, it will have to try harder." Night fell. Lanterns lit the streets. Music drifted from open shops. Santiago watched people passing by, laughing, bargaining, living, and realized something profound. He had nothing left to lose. And people who have nothing to lose are the ones destiny can shape the most. He lifted his head, felt the cool desert wind, and sensed, for the first time, that the universe was not punishing him. It was preparing him to become something greater than a shepherd boy who only dreamed of treasure, preparing him to understand omens, to read signs, to trust his heart, to step into the unknown again and again. Santiago stood up. A small crystal shop glowed at the corner of the street. A new beginning flickered inside it. A new chapter was waiting. My friend, sometimes destiny does not move forward with explosions or miracles. Sometimes it begins again in the smallest, quietest places. A forgotten corner of a street, a dusty window, a shop that most people walk past without even noticing. For Santiago, that place was the little crystal shop on the steep hill of Tangier. After losing everything, Santiago wandered the marketplace in silence, his pockets empty, his heart bruised, his hope flickering like a dying flame. He climbed a long, uneven street until he reached a small shop full of shimmering crystal, cups, vases, teapots, glowing faintly in the afternoon sun. Inside, an old merchant sat alone, quiet as a ghost. Santiago stood at the door, hesitating. Then, in a soft voice, he said, I can clean your glass if you give me food." The merchant looked up slowly, as if waking from a long sleep. His eyes were tired, but inside them was a loneliness Santiago recognized instantly. "Come in," the man said. And just like that, destiny opened its next door. Santiago began cleaning shelves one by one. Dust rose like memories from forgotten years. The crystal sparkled under his hands. The merchant watched quietly. By the time Santiago finished, the old man said something simple but powerful. "You have brought life back into the shop." He gave Santiago a meal, and then a job. But this was not just work, my friend. This was the beginning of a deeper understanding. Work done with intention is a form of prayer. Every sweep of the cloth, every careful movement, every crystal piece placed with love brought Santiago closer to the soul of the world. Over the next days, Santiago learned that the old man once had a dream too, a dream of going to Mecca, a holy pilgrimage he had promised himself he would take one day. But fear had wrapped canes around his heart. What if I go to Mecca and it disappoints me? What if the dream is better than the reality? Ah, my friend, this fear lives in many of us. The fear of achieving the dream, because if the dream ends, what do we live for next? Santiago listened quietly, not judging, not arguing, because he was learning an important truth. Not everyone wants their destiny. Some only want the comfort of imagining it. Santiago suggested something bold. "We should display the crystal outside your shop. People will notice it." The merchant resisted at first. He was afraid of change, afraid of breaking tradition, breaking glass, breaking himself. But eventually, he agreed. And just like that, customers began to return. The shop filled with footsteps, whispers, laughter, coins clinking on the counter. Life returned to a place that had forgotten how to breathe. Santiago smiled quietly. He wasn't just earning money. He was learning the language of omens. That when we follow a dream with honesty and courage, new possibilities appear like stars after sunset. One day, Santiago had another idea. "Let's serve crystal glasses of tea to travelers climbing this hill." The merchant's eyes widened in fear. Change again, more risk, more uncertainty. But the boy's presence had awakened something in him, a spark he had buried long ago. So he agreed. And soon the hill became alive, with people sipping fresh mint tea from shimmering crystal cups. The aroma filled the air. The sound of glass became music. The little shop became a place of beauty. And destiny began to whisper again. Santiago stayed in the shop for almost a year. He saved money, but he also gained something much deeper: patience, discipline, the understanding of omens, the courage to try, the humility to listen, the trust to let life guide him. He had grown, quietly, fully, deeply.
One evening, as the sun painted the city gold, Santiago realized this was never meant to be the end. It was a chapter, a preparation, a teaching. A soft voice inside him whispered, "You have stayed long enough. The desert awaits." When Santiago told the merchant he was leaving, the old man looked at him with a mixture of sadness and admiration. "You brought new life into my shop," he said gently, "and into my days." Then he added softly, "People change, and that terrifies me. But you, boy, you followed your dream. So go, with my blessing." It wasn't just a goodbye. It was a passing of wisdom from one soul to another. Santiago stepped outside, felt the warm wind brush his face, and looked toward the horizon. Africa stretched before him, vast, mysterious, waiting. He tightened his bag, held Urim and Thummim in his palm, and breathed in deeply. The heartache of loss, the lessons of work, the courage of risk, everything had prepared him for what comes next. The desert, the caravan, the alchemist, the transformation.
My friend, there comes a moment in every journey when the world you knew fades behind you, and the world ahead is nothing more than a vast unknown. For Santiago, that moment arrived when he stepped toward the desert. The desert, the whispered name of destiny since his first dream. A place so empty, it becomes full of meaning. A place so silent, it begins speaking to your soul. He didn't know it yet, but the desert was not just land. The desert was a teacher. At the edge of the marketplace, Santiago found the caravan, a long line of camels, merchants, guides, and wanderers preparing to cross the Sahara. The leader was a tall, quiet man with eyes that had seen too many horizons. He studied Santiago for a moment and gave a small nod. "You are welcome," he said, "but understand, the desert tests everyone." Santiago nodded, heart pounding softly like distant drums. He didn't know the rules, the dangers, or the secrets of this vast world, but something in him whispered, "You belong here." When the caravan began moving, Santiago looked back one last time. Tangier shrank behind him, its noise, its colors, its crowds, replaced by endless dunes rolling like golden waves under the sunlight. The sand felt warm beneath his feet. The sky stretched wide and impossibly empty. The world had become pure horizon. But strangely, Santiago didn't feel afraid. He felt free. The desert swallowed sound. Thoughts became clearer. Breath became slower. In this silence, even a whisper felt sacred. Somewhere near the middle of the long caravan, Santiago met a man buried under a mountain of books, the Englishman. He wasn't interested in sheep, or omens, or the wind. He spoke only about alchemy, the ancient science of turning lead into gold. Santiago listened politely as the Englishman explained the universal language, the masterwork, the philosopher's stone, the elixir of life, the idea that everything in the world is transforming into something better at every moment. Santiago found it fascinating, but confusing. Books were not his language. Life was.
He understood the world through wind and sheep, sunsets and dreams. Still, the Englishman's studies had a quiet magic, and Santiago felt that fate had placed him beside this strange man for a reason. Days passed, then weeks. The caravan walked in absolute silence. Only the crunch of sand, the groan of camels, and the soft whistle of wind filled the air. In this silence, Santiago learned something surprising. The desert speaks, not with words, but through feeling. He felt when danger was coming, when the wind carried meaning, when the horizon seemed to shift, when the omens whispered softly from the shapes of dunes and stars. The desert had a language, ancient, simple, and incredibly wise. The Englishman tried to learn it from books. Santiago learned it from listening. But even destiny has shadows. Rumors spread through the caravan, tribal conflicts, raiders, war. The desert, beautiful as it was, held dangers as sharp as blades. One night, the caravan leader spoke softly around a fire. In the desert, every step forward is a question you ask the world, and the world answers you through omens. Santiago felt the weight of those words. He looked at the stars, cold, bright, ancient, and understood. This journey was not just toward treasure, it was toward wisdom. On quiet nights, Santiago held Urim and Thummim in his hands, the stones Melchizedek gave him. He asked small questions. Should I keep going? Am I on the right path? Is the treasure real? He didn't always hear answers, but he always felt a soft reassurance inside, like the universe placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. And his heart, once quiet and confused, began to wake up. It whispered to him in the rhythm of his steps, "Trust the journey, trust the signs, trust yourself." This, more than anything else, was the beginning of Santiago's transformation. One evening, after long hours of walking, Santiago climbed a tall dune. He reached the top and gasped softly. Below him lay the oasis, a sea of green palms, blue water, soft lights flickering like fireflies in the distance. It felt like a miracle painted on the sand, a whisper from destiny, a sign that the universe was guiding him forward. The desert had given its first blessing, and the journey was about to enter a new chapter of magic. My friend, the desert has a strange way of giving you what you need before you even know you need it. Santiago thought the oasis would simply be a place to rest, to drink water, to regain strength. But the oasis was far more than that. It was a meeting point of destinies, a crossroads of souls, a library of unspoken lessons hidden behind palm trees and silence. And somewhere within it, a presence waited for Santiago, ancient, wise, and powerful. The Alchemist. When the caravan entered the oasis, Santiago felt a wave of peace settle gently onto his heart. There were thousands of palm trees, pools of shimmering water, candles hanging from branches, and tents glowing like stars scattered across the ground. Women carried clay pots. Children laughed near the water. Merchants rested under shade after long days of heat. It felt like the desert itself had paused to breathe. But beneath the beauty,
lay tension. Tribal wars had erupted beyond the dunes, and the tribal leader made an announcement. No one leaves the oasis until it is safe. Santiago didn't know it then, but destiny had placed him exactly where he needed to be. The Englishman was restless, agitated, eager. "This is where he lives," the Englishman whispered. "The alchemist, a man who can turn metal into gold." For him, the oasis was not a sanctuary. It was a destination. He wanted answers, secrets, formulas, ancient knowledge hidden for centuries. But Santiago, gentle and observant, watched the oasis differently. He watched the wind move through the palm leaves. He watched the desert birds circle overhead. He watched the omens play in the patterns of water. The Englishman searched for wisdom in his books. Santiago searched for wisdom in life. And sooner or later, both paths were going to lead to the same man. One afternoon, while wandering through date palms, Santiago noticed something. The desert was quieter than usual. The wind carried a different scent. Birds circled, moving in patterns that felt like warnings. He felt the heart inside his chest tremble with a message. Omens. He told the tribal leaders that danger was coming. Many laughed, many doubted, but a few looked at him carefully. They recognized what Santiago was becoming. And that night, when the oasis was attacked by warriors hidden in the dunes, they realized the boy had seen something others had refused to see. It was the first moment the desert acknowledged him. Late one night, as Santiago sat alone near the palms, he felt someone watching him. A tall figure stepped from the shadows, wrapped in a flowing cloak, moving with the ease of someone who understood both silence and danger. His eyes were sharp, ancient, alive. He asked, "Why did you read the omens?" Santiago blinked. He didn't know how to answer. The man stepped closer. He said, "When a heart is awake, the world begins to speak." Santiago felt the air shift. This was no ordinary traveler, no merchant, no wanderer. This was the alchemist, a man whispered about across continents, a legend woven into the sands. And now he stood before a shepherd boy. The alchemist studied Santiago with calm intensity. He said, "You are not afraid of the desert. You are afraid of your own greatness." Santiago lowered his gaze. The alchemist placed a hand over Santiago's heart. He whispered, "Everything in the universe has a soul. The trees, the sand, the wind, the stars, and you. When you desire something deeply, that desire is the universe remembering itself through you." Santiago felt tears sting his eyes. He had never heard anything so intimate, so true. The alchemist continued, "Listen to the desert. Listen to your heart. Listen to the omens. Everything you seek is also seeking you." They sat together by a small fire, just like you and I now, the flames dancing quietly between them. The alchemist said, "Your heart will speak. It will warn you. It will tremble. It will cry. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. But fear," he added softly, "fear is the only thing that can kill a dream. fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty, fear of the desert. He looked at Santiago deeply. You must walk forward even with fear in your chest. Courage, he said, courage is the mastery of fear, not the absence of it. Santiago breathed in slowly, as if taking the words into his very soul. When the flames dimmed and the night grew calm, the alchemist stood up. He said, "Meet me tomorrow. We will begin the real journey." Santiago asked softly, "Where?" The alchemist replied, "To your treasure, across the desert, across your fears, across yourself." And with that, he disappeared into the night as silently as he had arrived. Santiago sat alone, heart pulsing like a small sun inside his chest. The oasis was behind him. The desert waited ahead. His next teacher had arrived, and the world, for the first time, felt ready to tell him all its secrets.
Every journey toward a dream eventually crosses paths with love, not the loud, dramatic kind that fills stories with thunder, but the quiet kind, the kind that arrives as softly as wind over warm sand, the kind that settles into your heart like a feather landing on still water. In the oasis, Santiago encountered that love. Her name was Fatima. It happened on an ordinary morning. Santiago was carrying water to help with the caravan's chores when he approached a well surrounded by tall palms. The sunlight fell softly through their leaves, and she was there, Fatima, a girl with eyes dark as the desert night, and a presence so gentle it felt like a prayer. She lowered her gaze shyly as he approached, and in that single heartbeat, Santiago felt something strange and sacred move inside him, a feeling the desert itself seemed to echo. The alchemist once said that when two souls recognize each other, there is no explaining it. The heart knows. Santiago's heart knew. Every day after that, Santiago returned to the well, not for water, but for Fatima. They spoke little, but their silences were full of meaning. The desert wind carried her scarf. Their eyes lingered a little longer each day. Her smile softened each time she saw him. It was a different kind of omen, one that glowed instead of warned. Santiago realized that love was its own language, spoken through glances, understood through stillness, recognized by hearts long before minds catch up. Santiago listened to him with a calmness he had never known, as if he could hear the story between his words. The closer he grew to Fatima, the deeper Santiago felt the weight of a new fear. What if I lose her by following my treasure? What if I must choose between love and destiny? The desert, as if overhearing his heart, remained silent, because some answers are not spoken, they are lived. Santiago told the alchemist about his fear. The alchemist chuckled softly. "Love never keeps a man from his destiny," he said. "If it does, it is not love." The words landed like warm stones on Santiago's chest. Could he believe that? Fatima answered him without hesitation. One evening, the sky painted itself in rosy twilight as Santiago approached the well. He told Fatima that he feared losing her, that he feared leaving. Fatima looked at him with eyes full of truth. She said, "I am part of the desert, and the desert waits. If a man is meant for me, he will return to me." My friend,
What a rare kind of love that is. Not clingy, not afraid, not demanding, but trusting. She placed her hand over her heart. She whispered, "I will wait for you, because women of the desert believe in the wind that brings our men back to us." Those words lifted something heavy from Santiago's soul. He understood. Love was not an obstacle on the path to his destiny. Love was part of it. But while love blossomed beside the well, danger darkened the edges of the oasis. The tribal war deepened. Scouts carried warnings. Raids grew bolder. Fear moved like a shadow between the tents. The oasis, usually a place of peace, felt like a flame trembling in a desert storm. It was in this tension that the elders called Santiago. They had seen how he interpreted omens. They had listened when he warned them of the coming attack. They now trusted him in ways he had never expected. "Your gift," they told him, "is rare." Santiago wasn't used to being called gifted. It frightened him and humbled him. But destiny often reveals our strength in times of danger. The alchemist appeared again near the date palms. He said, "Your time here is ending." Santiago looked toward the well, toward Fatima. "Must I go now?" he whispered. The alchemist nodded. "Yes, dreams do not wait. And she," he added, "is strong enough to love a man with a destiny." Santiago's heart trembled, not from fear this time, but from the weight of love that pushed him forward. Because real love does not chain you. Real love hands you the map to your destiny. On his last evening, Santiago returned to the well. Fatima stood there, bathed in soft golden light. No tears, no begging, no fear. Just a calm smile and a quiet promise. "I will wait for you," she said again. "Go, find your treasure, and return to me as the man you are meant to be." Santiago touched her hands. He felt the pulse of something ancient and beautiful. The desert wind picked up, lifting her hair, whispering around them like a blessing. And Santiago knew. Love had not delayed the journey. Love had prepared him for it. The further Santiago walked into his destiny, the clearer one truth became. Dreams don't just ask for courage, they demand it. The desert, patient and ancient, was ready to test him. And the first test was fear. The oasis was no longer a place of pure peace. War, quiet at first, began to spread like smoke across the dunes. Tribal riders were seen on distant horizons. Scouts returned with warnings. Tents whispered with rumors. Santiago felt it before anyone said it. A storm was coming. The alchemist met him at the edge of the palm trees, cloak blending with the darkness. "War is just another desert," he said softly. "Another test to see if your heart is ready." Santiago nodded, but deep inside, fear shivered. Not fear of death, not fear of pain, fear of losing the dream before it truly began. One night, under a wide, star-soaked sky, the alchemist guided Santiago far from the tents. The desert was silent, except for the gentle breathing of sand shifting in the wind. "You have a gift," the alchemist said. "You see the omens. You listen to the world. But fear—" He paused, letting the fire crackle between them. "Fear is a liar." Santiago stared at the flames. "What if I fail?" he whispered. The alchemist smiled slowly. "If it is your destiny, you cannot fail. And if it is not, you cannot succeed. Fear is only the thief that steals the present." The words settled softly into Santiago's heart like warm embers. One afternoon, Santiago walked near the edge of the oasis. He lifted his head and saw two hawks circling in the sky. Their movements weren't random. They were sharp, intentional, almost violent. Suddenly, one hawk attacked the other. A split-second flash, a burst of feathers, a spiral of wings, and in that moment, Santiago saw something. Not with his eyes, with his soul. A vision. The oasis under attack. Warriors storming through the palms. Weapons raised. Chaos. Fire. Blood. War. He gasped as the image tightened around him like a band around his chest. This wasn't imagination. This was an omen, a warning, a message. Santiago ran to the tribal chieftains. His heart pounded so hard he could barely breathe. "I saw an attack, a vision, an omen," he told them. The chieftains stared at him with disbelief. A boy? A foreigner? A shepherd? But one man, older than all the others, leaned forward. "Trusting omens is how our ancestors survived. If the boy is wrong, he will die." Santiago swallowed. "If the boy is right, the oasis will live." The tension in the room felt like a string pulled tight across centuries. Santiago bowed his head. He had spoken the truth. Now destiny would decide the rest. That night, the oasis held its breath. Men hid behind palm trees with weapons ready. Women and children were ushered into safe tents. The wind moved softly through the date palms as if whispering prayers. Santiago waited, heart trembling, legs numb. Did I see a real omen? He wondered. Or was it just fear giving me illusions? The alchemist approached him quietly. "You did well," he said. "Courage is born in moments like this." Santiago nodded, but deep within, worry gnawed at him. The night felt endless. The sky above was a cold ocean of stars. And then, just before dawn, it happened. Wild cries shattered the silence. A wave of warriors rushed toward the oasis on horseback, weapons glinting in the dark. But the tribes were ready. They fought back with precision, swift, sharp, powerful. The battle was brief. The attackers were defeated. The oasis survived. All because a shepherd boy had listened to two hawks fighting in the sky. When the dust settled, the chieftains approached Santiago, their eyes filled with respect. "You have the gift," they said. "You read the world." One of them placed a golden medallion in Santiago's hands, a reward and a reminder that those who listen to their hearts are rarely wrong. Santiago bowed, eyes burning with quiet emotion. He felt something new inside him, not pride, but purpose. Later that night, the alchemist found Santiago standing alone among the palms. "You've done what only a true seeker can do," he said. But now your journey must continue. Santiago looked at the dunes, stretching endless and silent under the moon. Fear returned, but softer now, less powerful. "I'm ready," he whispered. The alchemist smiled. "Then tomorrow we leave for the desert." And just like that, Santiago's next test had begun. The desert had revealed his gift. Now it would reveal his soul. My friend, every dream demands a price. Not of money, not of strength, but of transformation. To reach the treasure, Santiago must become something he has never been before. Not a shepherd, not a traveler, not even a student of omens, but the wind. The desert, ancient and patient, has been waiting for this moment. Santiago and the alchemist left the oasis before sunrise. The sky was a soft blue whisper, the sand cool under their feet, and the world stretched in endless silence. For days they walked, passing dunes that looked like sleeping giants, skies that felt too wide for any single soul to understand. The alchemist spoke rarely, but when he did, his words felt like doors opening into Santiago's heart. "You're getting closer," he said softly, "not to the treasure, but to yourself." Santiago nodded, feeling the truth settle into his bones. Sometimes the journey does not lead you to what you want. It leads you to who you must become. But the desert, as always, held dangers. One afternoon, as they approached a cluster of dunes, a group of armed tribesmen appeared from the horizon, faces covered, eyes sharp as blades. Within moments, Santiago and the alchemist were surrounded. Their bags were thrown aside, their camels taken, their hands bound. The soldiers searched them, finding no weapons. Only a small flask the alchemist carried. "What is this?" a soldier demanded. The alchemist smiled calmly. "The elixir of life." The men laughed. They didn't believe him. But one detail did not go unnoticed. When the alchemist opened the flask, the air shimmered slightly. The soldiers hesitated, not believing the alchemist, but not fully dismissing him either. They dragged Santiago into the heart of their camp. The real trial was beginning. Inside the camp, the tribal chief questioned them. "Why are you here?" he asked. "To find treasure," Santiago answered honestly. The chief frowned. "And what can you offer us in exchange for your lives?" Before Santiago could speak, the alchemist replied. "The boy," he said, "can turn himself into the wind." The tent fell silent. The chief stared. His eyes darkened. "If he fails," he said coldly, "you both die." Santiago's heart froze. Turn into the wind? He had no idea how to do that. He didn't even know what it meant. He looked at the alchemist, panicked, trembling. The alchemist placed a calm hand on his shoulder. "Listen to your heart," he whispered. "It knows the language of the world." Santiago was taken to a cliff overlooking an endless desert. 3 days. That's all the time he was given to perform the impossible. He closed his eyes. The wind touched his face. Gentle, curious. He spoke to it softly. "Help me." But the wind did not respond. He turned to the sun, the great golden watcher of the desert. "Teach me," Santiago whispered. But the sun remained silent. Fear pulled at him, heavy as a chain. The desert watched, unblinking. The soldiers waited, ready to kill. And the alchemist, he simply sat quietly, eyes closed, trusting the boy. On the third day, Santiago felt something shift, not outside, but inside. His heart spoke. "You have listened to omens. You have followed dreams. You have trusted the desert. Now, trust yourself." He breathed slowly, deeply, letting the desert air fill him. He felt the wind. He felt the sand. He felt the heat of the sun. He felt the soul of the world. And suddenly, he understood. We are not separate from the universe. We are made of the same atoms, the same energy, the same breath. To become the wind was not to change form, but to remember you were never separate from it. Santiago opened his arms. The wind gathered around him, soft at first, then stronger. Sand began to swirl, lifting off the ground like spiraling gold dust. The sky darkened, the desert trembled, the dunes shook. The soldiers backed away, eyes wide. Santiago's voice merged with the wind. He spoke in the language of the world. And the wind, ancient, free, wild, responded. It lifted him, spun around him, and merged with him until boy and wind became one. A storm roared across the desert, powerful, untamed, beautiful. The camp was swallowed in sand and wind so fierce that not a single warrior could stand. And yet, Santiago felt no fear. He was the wind. He was everywhere. He was everything. He had become what he had always been, a soul connected to the world. When the storm finally settled, Santiago stood again on the cliff edge, alive, breathing, transformed. The tribal chief stepped forward slowly. His face carried both disbelief and reverence. "You may go," he said quietly. "No man who speaks the language of the world should die by our hands." Santiago bowed gratefully. The alchemist smiled. "You have learned the greatest lesson," he said. "What is it?" Santiago whispered. "That fear," the alchemist replied, "is the only thing that ever stops us from becoming who we truly are." My friend, the fire flickers gently. The stars glow brighter. And Santiago's journey is almost complete. Every journey, no matter how far it travels, eventually returns home. Not to the same place, but with a new set of eyes. After surviving war, fear, love, omens, and becoming the wind itself, Santiago walked across the final stretch of desert. The pyramids rose before him, golden giants touching the sky, ancient and sacred. The place his dream had whispered about, again and again. Santiago fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the sight. He felt tears gather, Not of sadness, but of recognition. "This is it," he whispered. "My treasure, my destiny." He knelt in the sand, hands trembling, and began to dig. He dug and dug and dug, until his fingers bled, until sunset faded into night, until the stars gathered like silent witnesses above him. But the hole remained empty. No gold, no jewels, no chest. Nothing. Just sand. And more sand. His heart cracked open. Had he followed a lie? Had the desert tricked him? Had he given up everything for nothing? Exhausted, he collapsed onto the ground, face buried in his arms. And that's when the world tested him one last time. A group of desert thieves found him that night. They dragged him from the hole and beat him, fists heavy, boots sharp, sand flying around him like a frantic storm. "What are you doing here?" one snarled. I'm looking for my treasure," Santiago gasped. The men laughed. One of them, a large man with tired eyes, spoke. "You fool. Years ago, I had a dream too." Santiago looked up, blood on his lips. The man continued. "I dreamed there was treasure under a ruined church in Spain, a church with a tree growing through the roof." Santiago's heart froze. "But I'm not stupid," the man said. "I'd never travel across the whole desert for a dream." They kicked sand at him, laughed, and disappeared into the darkness. Santiago lay still. Then slowly, a tremble of realization moved through him, like the desert had whispered the truth into his bones. The treasure was never in Egypt. It was in Spain. In the very place his journey began. In the very place he first dreamed. The ruined church, the giant sycamore tree. The treasure had always been waiting for him right beneath his feet. Santiago returned to Spain with a quiet smile and a heart that had walked galaxies. The church stood exactly where he left it, worn, silent, humble. The sycamore tree stretched its branches through the broken roof as if pointing the way. Santiago fell to his knees, hands pushing into the earth, digging with a certainty that felt like destiny unfolding in real time. And then his fingers hit wood. A chest. Old, heavy, real. He opened it with trembling hands. Gold coins, jewels, ancient artifacts, more wealth than he had ever imagined. But Santiago smiled softly, because the treasure wasn't the gold. The treasure was the journey. He laughed gently, the sound echoing in the small ruined church. He understood now. Life hides the treasure right where you began, but only reveals it after you walk the world and earn the eyes to see it. Santiago leaned back against the sycamore tree. Above him, the sky swirled with stars. A warm wind brushed his face, as if the desert itself was smiling. And that's it for today, my friend. You were listening to Wise Alchemy, where stories aren't just told, they awaken something inside us. The story ends here for now, but you and we'll meet again. Thank you. for sitting by the fire with me.